Not everyone is worthy of your trust. Not everyone deserves your respect. In fact, some people, no matter how charming or influential they may seem, are enemies of your peace, your clarity, and your virtue. To live by Stoic principles, you must learn not only how to act, but who to avoid. The Stoics weren't naive. They knew that the world is filled with distractions dressed as friends, manipulators cloaked in smiles, and fools who speak confidently of nothing. Trusting the wrong person isn't just a mistake, it can be a detour from the path of reason. Respecting the wrong person isn't just a misjudgment, it's a betrayal of your own values. So how do you recognize these people? What does Stoicism teach us about human character? The answer is not in appearance or achievement, but in how. One handles virtue, reason, and self-governance. The first kind of person you should never trust is the one who flatters too easily. Praise without purpose is a tool of manipulation. This kind of person seeks your approval so they can own your attention. They shower you with empty compliments, not because they admire you, but because they seek something in return. True respect is silent. It observes. It waits. But the flatterer, he rushes in with sugar on his tongue and a hidden ledger in his mind, already calculating what your gratitude will cost. Seneca warned that a friend made by benefits is bought, not made. And so it is with the flatterer. Err not your ally. They are a merchant of emotion. Stoicism teaches you to watch actions, not words. Does their admiration last when you fail? Does their loyalty remain when you have nothing to give? Then there's the gossiper, the second person, who must never be trusted. This is the individual who always knows too much about other people's lives. Their energy is not spent on building, but on tearing down. They trade in the weaknesses of others, believing that by exposing faults, they elevate their own standing. But what do they say about you when you're not in the room? A Stoic remains silent unless his words are better than silence. The gossiper speaks to fill the emptiness of their own reflection. They fear being forgotten, so they drag others down to be remembered. Trust them, and you will become just another story in their mouth. Respect them, and you approve the erosion of dignity. The third kind is the consistently angry person. It's not the one who gets angry, but the one who lives there, who wakes each day already at war with the world. This person sees disrespect in every glance, offense in every word, betrayal in every delay. Their ego is always bruised, and their peace is always someone else's responsibility. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. If you surround yourself with the perpetually enraged, you will begin to absorb their storms. You will become reactive instead of reflective. And worse, you will become addicted to the false energy that anger provides. Never confuse intensity with depth. Never confuse fury with conviction. Next is the person who avoids responsibility, the fourth on our list. This one is subtle, often charming. They always have a reason for failure, and it's never them. Life happens to them. Others are always to blame. Circumstances, politics, the past, they'll weigh something else. Stoicism places the entire burden of your character on you. It's the moment you begin blaming others for your actions. You step off the path. The person who avoids responsibility teaches you to escape accountability through storytelling. They might be fun. They might be interesting, but they are not strong. And their influence will make you weak. Who else should you never trust? The one who mocks discipline, the fifth person. This individual finds restraint boring and mocks those who aim for self-control. They see your effort to wake early, to eat cleanly, to speak thoughtfully as foolish or arrogant. But what they mock is not you, it is the mirror you hold up to them. Their laughter is a mask for shame. The Stoic path is narrow and steep, and those who fear the climb will try to drag you back down. If you let them, you will begin laughing at your own progress just to fit in. You will betray your future for the comfort of the present. Do not confuse popularity with strength. Many are liked, but few are grounded. We also must mention the sixth type, the person who fears silence. They always need noise. They fear being alone with their thoughts. so they fill the room with chatter, the calendar with events, and their mind with distraction.
Always.
These are not just extroverts, they are escape artists. Epictetus taught that no man is free who is not master of himself. And silence is where the battle for mastery begins. If someone cannot sit in stillness, they cannot be trusted to remain calm in chaos. If they cannot reflect in silence, they cannot lead with wisdom. Their fear of quiet is a warning. The seventh person to avoid is the chronic victim, not the one who has suffered, but the one who identifies with suffering so deeply that it becomes their entire personality. Their power lies in helplessness, and they use it like a weapon. Every slight is exaggerated. Every discomfort becomes injustice. Their stories are never meant to inspire. They are meant to bind. You cannot grow alongside someone who sees growth. As betrayal, the Stoic knows pain, yes, but he transcends it, uses it as fuel. The chronic victim demands that you stay small, so they are never reminded of what is possible. Respect them, and you will inherit their ceiling. Trust them, and your progress becomes a threat. We are almost there. But consider the eighth, the opportunist. This is the person who mirrors you to gain your favor. They adapt to your values, your likes, your habits, but it is always a costume. Once the opportunity ends, so does the friendship. These people are like shadows they follow. When the light is on you and disappear when it's gone, trust must be tested. Loyalty must be inconvenient. The opportunist is allergic to sacrifice. Their loyalty lasts only as long as the reward. A Stoic does not fear solitude, and so he does not need to cling to temporary companionship. It's better to walk alone than to run with those who sprint only when it's easy. And finally, the ninth, the one who disrespects their own word, the promise breaker, the one whose yes means maybe and whose maybe means no. They treat words like currency in a game. But every time you let them redefine integrity, you redefine your own standards. A person who cannot honor their word cannot build a life of virtue. If they cannot stand by what they say, they will not stand by you. The Stoic builds a fortress out of consistency. He does not say what he does not mean. He does not tolerate those who speak with no intention of following through. These 9 types are not just difficult, they are dangerous. Not in the way of violence or crime, but in the way of slow erosion. They chip away at your values, your clarity, your strength, and before you know it, you are someone else. Lighter in virtue, heavier in regret. Choose your company as a wise. Man chooses his words, slowly, carefully, and with intention. Because who you allow into your life is who you allow to shape your soul. You are the average of the voices you allow in your mind. And many of those voices do not shout, they whisper. Not all threats come from enemies. Some come disguised as friends, family, or even your own thoughts, echoing the words of people you once admired. This is why the Stoics urged vigilance, not just over action, but over influence. You guard your home from thieves? Why not your mind? Why not your soul? Let's continue with the 10th kind of danger, the overpromiser. This person doesn't just break their word like the 9th, they manufacture dreams. They present futures painted with perfect strokes. They tell you what you want to hear, what excites you, what soothes your impatience. And then, they disappear into the fog of unfulfilled intentions. It seems harmless at first. After all, they're only words, right? That's where the danger lies. When you start building your expectations on someone else's fantasy, you're not just trusting them, you're abandoning your own reason. Stop making plans grounded in reality. Start waiting, hoping, reacting. A Stoic does not wish, he works. He does not daydream, he directs. Promises are sacred to him, and so is time. If someone's vision requires your patience, but not their effort, it's not a planet, it's a prison. Then we face the 11th, the emotional puppeteer. This person thrives not by force, but by guilt. They make you responsible for their feelings. If they're upset, it's your fault. If they're insecure, you must reassure. If they feel neglected, you must prove your loyalty again and again. But the Stoic knows, you are not responsible for how others choose to interpret reality. Compassion is one thing. Emotional hostage-taking is another. When someone uses affection as leverage, when love becomes a performance measured by your compliance, you are not in a relationship. You are in a cage. Freedom in Stoicism isn't just politicalized personal. And anyone who seeks to control your behavior by distorting your empathy must be kept at a distance, no matter how close they once felt. The 12th is the eternal performer. This person always has an audience of on when no one is watching. Their life is a display. Their values are curated. Their emotions are rehearsed. They seek approval more than truth, applause more than peace. This person exhausts you. Not because they demand your attention, but because they demand your participation. They need you to mirror their illusions, to nod at their facades, to co-sign the story they've created. But Stoicism asks you to strip away illusion, to live according to nature, to reality, to the present moment, not a fantasy. When you surround yourself with performers, you begin to wear your own mask just to keep pace. And one day, you forget how to remove it. Let's step back. Let's ask the fundamental question. What do you want your life to reflect? Truth or approval? Depth or decoration? These choices are made not just by what you do, but by who you allow to walk beside you. There is another figure, subtler than the rest, the 13th. The avoider of effort. This person worships comfort. They detest inconvenience. They build their life around ease and resent anything that demands consistency, discipline, or sacrifice. They are not loud. They are not dramatic. But their influence is profoundly corrosive. When you spend time with someone who flees every challenge, their standard becomes contagious. You begin to question your discipline. You start postponing what needs to be done. Do you rationalize shortcuts? You call your own progress obsessive just to stay relatable. But the Stoics never promised a comfortable life. They promised a meaningful one. And meaning always walks hand in hand with struggle. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And comfort worshippers suffer the most in the mind because they build a world so small, so safe that anything uncertain becomes terrifying. Avoid them. Not with hatred, but with boundaries. They can rest. You must rise. There's the 14th, the one who speaks too much and says too little. This kind of person drowns you in opinions, advice, observations. They mistake noise for wisdom.
Ow.
Words never pause. Because silence terrifies them, it might reveal their emptiness. The Stoic values speech as an instrument. It's not a performance. To speak less is not weakness. It is strength. It is intention. If someone cannot restrain their voice, they cannot sharpen their thought. If you find yourself constantly explaining your silence to someone, constantly justifying your need for solitude, you are not with a kindred spirit. You're with a siphon. One who draws energy from chaos and scatters it like dust. But why is this all so urgent? Why not simply live and let live? Because character is contagious. And without conscious effort, if you don't rise to your ideals, you sink to your environment. Let us go deeper still. The 15th person must be wary of is the one who worships status over substance. They chase titles, trophies, attention. They define success by visibility. They hunger to be seen, not to be solid. Their worth is borrowed from others' admiration, never from internal peace. You might think, what harm can this do me? But spend enough time with someone like this, and you begin to trade your purpose for perception. You start filtering your actions through the lens of optics. You do what looks virtuous instead of what is virtuous. The Stoic path is invisible. It is quiet. The most honorable choices are often the least rewarded by society. So, when you find yourself craving attention, ask, whose values are these? Mine? Or someone else's that I've unknowingly absorbed? You begin to see the pattern. These people, the flatterers, the gossipers, the angry, the weak-willed, the manipulative, the comfort worshippers, the status chasers, they are not bad simply because of what they do. They are dangerous because of what they do to you. They do not take your life, they take your compass. That is why the Stoics placed so much emphasis on community, not in the sense of popularity, but alignment. Walk with the wise, and you become wiser. Walk with the lost, and you forget your direction. The company you keep becomes the voice in your head. Choose it as though your character depends on it, because it does. Trust is not just an emotion. It is a transaction of integrity. Respect is not simply admiration, it is recognition of virtue, of character, of self-mastery. And yet we so often hand both to those who have done nothing to deserve it. Why? Because we confuse charm with depth. We confuse familiarity with safety. We confuse shared experience with shared values. And that confusion costs us dearly. The Stoics knew that the greatest threat to a virtuous life wasn't always war, poverty, or death. It was the slow erosion of the soul through proximity to the wrong people. It is not thunder that brings down the house, it is the quiet rot in the foundation. There's a 16th figure who wears a dangerous disguise, the one who always plays the devil's advocate. This person does not argue to uncover truth, they argue to win. They do not listen to understand, they listen to counter. On the surface, this may seem like intellectual rigor, challenging friend, a sharp mind, but over time you'll see that their goal isn't insight's dominance. They do not seek clarity, they seek to feel superior. This person erodes your conviction, not because they are right, but because they are relentless. The Stoic seeks truth, not victory. The contrarian seeks conflict because conflict feeds their ego, and your peace is the price. There is nothing wrong with disagreement. In fact, philosophy depends on it. But disagreement must be grounded in mutual respect and the shared pursuit of wisdom. When someone turns every discussion into a battleground, you are not in dialogue, you are in combat, and you will begin to carry that tension with you long after the conversation ends. Then there's the 17th, the one who despises simplicity. This person believes complexity is intelligence, that chaos is sophistication. They scorn the clear answer, the humble insight, the quiet life. To them, simplicity is naive, but the Stoics saw it differently. To live simply is not to live stupidly, it's to live freely. Seneca reminded us that it is not the man who has little, but the man who desires more, that is poor. This person will tempt you to overcomplicate everything, your goals, your identity, your values. Before long, you'll be lost in abstractions, chasing problems that don't exist, constantly trying to justify why nothing ever feels enough. Their world is one of perpetual dissatisfaction. And if you allow it, you'll inherit that worldview. There is another, equally poisonous, the 18th, the one who makes a virtue of cynicism. They see weakness in hope, foolishness in effort, and naivety in kindness. They don't just prepare for disappointment, they expect it. They don't just doubt others, they scorn them. Cynicism is not wisdom. It is despair with better branding. The Stoics were not cynics. They were realists. Yes, but hopeful ones. They believed in progress, in virtue, in effort. But they embraced suffering, not as an excuse for bitterness, but as a forge for character. But the cynic whispers, don't. Try, don't trust. It's all meaningless. Slowly your motivation rusts. You stop striving, you stop believing. Confuse protection with paralysis. This person cloaks their fear in sarcasm, their laziness in mockery, their nihilism in detachment. And if you're not careful, you'll begin to admire their armor, forgetting that it's armor worn by someone who stopped walking. Then there is the 19th, the spiritual manipulator. This person speaks in the language of growth, but lives in the shadow of control. They quote wisdom not to illuminate, but to elevate themselves. They speak of healing while cutting others down. They wrap ego in the language of enlightenment. They are dangerous precisely because they sound like the Stoics. They speak of virtue, of peace, of perspective. But their words are performative. They preach detachment while clinging to admiration. They promote stillness while craving attention. True Stoicism is not about appearing calm, it's about being calm. Not about saying the right thing, but doing it. The spiritual manipulator sells tranquility like a product and uses philosophy as camouflage. You will know them not by their language, but by their patterns. Watch how they treat others. Watch how they react when they are not praised. Wisdom is humble, influence is gentle. But manipulation wears both like borrowed robes. And finally, the 20th person, perhaps the most difficult to recognize, the one who constantly talks about changing but never does. This is not a villain. This may be someone you love, someone with good intentions, someone who always means to do better. They speak of plans. They confess their flaws, promise that change is just around the corner. But the Stoic knows change is not talk. It is toil. It is repetition. It is sacrifice. We are not judged by our aspirations, but our actions. This person becomes dangerous not because of harm done, but because they keep you suspended in hope. They keep you waiting for them to become who they are not yet ready to be. Your compassion becomes a leash. Your loyalty becomes a burden. And your sense of time becomes distorted. You wait. You support. You encourage. And still nothing shifts. Stoic can love deeply, but he does not confuse love with blindness. You must recognize when someone's potential has become your prison. So here we are at 20 kinds of people, each a unique threat to your clarity, your purpose, your path. What is the common thread? They distract, they distort, they delay. The Stoic life is not lived in isolation, but it is lived with intention. You cannot control who enters your path, but you can control who stays. You can control who shapes your inner dialogue, who influences your character, who joins your journey. Ask yourself now, who are you becoming around them? Do you like the answer? If not, walk away, not with hatred, not with drama, but with stillness, with strength, the quiet certainty that your peace is worth protecting because the life you want, begins with who you no longer allow in. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, but also with the color of its company. We may believe ourselves to be strong, independent, firm in principle, yet like the ocean shapes the stone, so to do, the people we allow near us shape the edges of our mind. You do not escape influence. You only choose its source. If a man wishes to be virtuous, then let him stand with those who live with virtue as their compass, not with those who speak of virtue while living in contradiction. There is an old danger that Stoicism warns us about: the illusion of neutrality. The belief that we can spend time with anyone and remain unchanged. That we can move among the corrupt and stay pure. That we can entertain deceit without becoming entangled in it. But virtue, like a flame, does not grow stronger when suffocated. And no one walks through a smoke-filled room without carrying the scent on their clothes. So consider this. Why is it that we hesitate to let go of these people? What keeps us orbiting around them long after we've seen the signs? Sometimes it's fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of judgment. Fear of burning bridges we may one day want to cross again. But bridges to nowhere serve no purpose. Sometimes it's habit. We become attached not to the person but to the rhythm of their presence, to the comfort of what is known, even when it wounds us. We forget that the body adapts to pain over time, making it feel less urgent, till we remove the source and realize how heavy the burden truly was. Other times, it's guilt. We believe that to walk away is to abandon. That too. Set boundaries is to reject. But Stoicism teaches a different truth. To protect your peace is not to harm others. It is to honor your own nature. If a man throws his peace into the fire of another's chaos, he does not serve it as himself, he sacrifices. You must learn to draw the line between compassion and self-neglect, between patience and enabling, between loyalty and surrendering your soul inch by inch. Ask yourself, would the person you want to become respect the boundaries you've refused to draw? We often speak of fate. The Stoics remind us to accept what is beyond our control. Relationships, fate does not bind us to others, choice does. You're not chained to anyone by duty that destroys you. The chains, if they exist, are self-forged. So what then does the Stoic do with toxic relationships? He does not curse them, does not resent them. He observes them, learns from them, thanks them for revealing what must be healed, and walks away. silently, cleanly, without performance, without revenge. Revenge is the pastime of the weak. Peace is the possession of the truly powerful. To leave without anger is not weakness. It is mastery. And as you make space, something else happens. You begin to hear your own voice more clearly. You begin to move not from reaction, but from reflection. You begin to find peace not in the absence of people, but in the presence of alignment, and in that space. You invite the kind of people who sharpen your mind, steady your heart, and expand your spirit, not because you begged for them, but because like attracts like. The moment you begin living with integrity, you become a beacon for others who do the same. You will meet those who value effort over image, depth over appearance, wisdom over charm. People who do not flatter you but tell you the truth. People who do not enable your weakness, but hold you to your strength. People who do not keep you comfortable but keep you conscious. This is the real power of the Stoic path. It does not just transform your solitude. It transforms your relationships. It filters your circle. It purifies your surroundings. Because once you know peace, chaos becomes unbearable. Once you know alignment, compromise becomes obvious. And once you know your own worth, anything less feels like noise. Let this be the test. Does this person bring you closer to stillness or drag you deeper into storms? Does your mind feel clearer after they leave or more clouded? Does their presence sharpen your values or soften your standards? If the answer is the latter, again and again, then you already know what must be done. Do it. Not tomorrow. Not after one more conversation. Not after one more apology or promise of change. Do it now. Do it without hatred, but without hesitation. Because your life is not a rehearsal, and your peace is not up for negotiation. What remains, after you let go of what distorts, is not emptiness, but clarity. What remains is the kind of solitude the Stoics cherished. Not loneliness, but alignment. Not exile, but elevation. You were not meant to please everyone. You were meant to become you whole, undistracted and unshaken. It is better to walk alone than with a crowd headed in the wrong direction. But the crowd is seductive, not only in its size, but in its sound. It hums with validation. It murmurs comfort. It promises belonging. For a moment, just a moment, it feels like safety. But what is safety if it demands that you bury your values to keep it? What is belonging if it means becoming a stranger to yourself? The Stoics walked paths often misunderstood. They chose clarity over applause, virtue over popularity. They did not measure the quality of their choices by the number of people who approved of them, but by how closely those choices aligned with reason and nature. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. If you must explain yourself constantly to be accepted, you are not among friends. You are among judges. And here is a truth that stings more than we'd like to admit. Not everyone who walks beside you wants you to rise. Some prefer you broken, small, contained, manageable, because the moment you really grow, you reflect back to them all the ways they chosen not to. Your discipline becomes their discomfort. Your clarity becomes their confusion. Your peace becomes their provocation, and they will react. Not always with obvious sabotage, sometimes with subtle resistance, dismissive remarks, backhanded compliments. Small interruptions to your momentum disguised as concern. They'll say, "You've changed." And they'll be right. Because how? Could you not? Growth is not betrayal. Growth is the natural result of attention, intention, and effort. And if your growth disturbs someone's comfort, that is not your burden to bear. A Stoic does not dim his flame to soothe the shadows around him. He burns steadily, regardless of who can handle the light. So when you sense this resistance, when someone you trust begins to bristle at your self-improvement, pause. Ask, is this love or control, support or sabotage? Love wants your highest good, even when it's inconvenient. Control wants your loyalty, even when it costs your soul. This is the line we must learn to draw in anger. But in awareness, There are people who will clap for you as long as you stay beneath them. People who prefer your confusion because it validates their stagnation. People who mask envy with false concern, but the Stoic sees through performance. The Stoic knows that not all smiles are sincere. Not all friends are true. And not all who share the path today are meant to finish the journey with you. And so we must practice the art of departure, not just from places, but from people, to leave not in hatred, but in honor, to release not with bitterness, but with blessing, to say I choose peace over permission. I choose clarity over chaos. I choose alignment over attachment. You will miss some of them. That is natural. You will question your decision. That is human. But peace will follow your footsteps if the decision was rooted in truth. Sometimes, the soul recognizes what the mind hesitates to admit. Listen to that quiet discomfort, that low, persistent hum that says something is off. It is not paranoia. It is wisdom trying to speak, and once you leave, you will feel its space. Space to think, to heal, to rediscover the sound of your own voice without the static of judgment. You will begin to notice how much of your energy was spent managing others' emotions, validating their insecurities, buffering your truth to protect their egos, and you will grieve not just the person, but the version of yourself you had to become to stay. But grief, in the Stoic way, is not weakness. It is the evidence that you loved, that you cared, that you tried. The Stoics did not suppress grief. They welcomed it. Not as rulers over the heart, but as observers of nature. Do not be ashamed of being affected by emotion, they taught, but do not become a slave to it either. Let it pass. Let it wash over you, and then let it go. Because after grief comes growth. After the letting go comes the letting in. And you will begin to attract, differently, not by force, but by frequency. Those who are aligned with your truth will find you not because you sought them, but because you became visible to them. You stopped pretending. You stopped diluting. You stopped apologizing for your depth, your clarity, your standards. And in that silence, after all the noise has faded, you will find something extraordinary. A quiet so steady it becomes strength. A presence so still it becomes power. This is where the Stoic lives. Not in crowds, but in consciousness. Not in approval, but in alignment. And from this place, you can move through life unshaken. You can say, no, not from fear, but from knowing. You can let go not from bitterness, but from wisdom. You can walk alone not as a rejection of others, but as a return to yourself, because the only companionship the Stoic requires is virtue. All else is optional. You will be judged for the standards you refuse to lower. You will be misunderstood for the boundaries you set, and you will be questioned for the peace you protect. But none of this should move you, because the Stoic does not measure rightness by noise. He measures it by nature, by principle, by reason. There is a certain type of person who will always resist this kind of clarity, not because they cannot understand it, but because they fear what it means for them. You expose them simply by standing still in your values. Without accusation, without confrontation, your very presence becomes a mirror they are not ready to face. And so they attack not always directly, but through suspicion, gossip, withdrawal, or mockery. They accuse you of arrogance, when what they really feel is insecurity. They call your silence judgmental, when what it truly does is remind them of their own inner chaos. Your calm is unsettling to the anxious. Your direction is offensive to the aimless. What then do you owe these people? Nothing. The Stoics taught us that we are not responsible for how others interpret our virtue. We are responsible only for maintaining it. If anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. It's the truth I'm after. And if they are not after truth, then let them chase illusions without you. The danger is not that these people exist. The danger is believing that you must keep them in your life out of guilt, nostalgia, or the hope that they will one day become who you imagined. The Stoic path requires a brutal honesty, not just with others, but but with yourself. Ask how much of your peace is being paid as rent for the presence of someone who does not belong in your life. How often do you compromise your time, your focus, your values, just to maintain the illusion of harmony? And if you're honest, what does it cost you each time? There are those who take without thanks, who demand without giving, who expect without effort. They operate under the assumption that your loyalty is unconditional, your attention endless, your boundaries negotiable. But the Stoic knows that no relationship, be it personal, professional, or familial, is worth sacrificing the very essence of who you are. Virtue is the only possession that cannot be stolen, but it can be surrendered voluntarily, slowly, quietly if you're not vigilant. So who are these people you should never trust or respect? The ones who ask you to betray yourself for their comfort, the ones who punish your growth because it exposes their stagnation, the ones who measure your worth by your usefulness to them, and perhaps most dangerously, the ones who pretend to support you but secretly hope you fail so that they may stay superior, so that they won't have to confront their own lack of progress. You do not owe them your time. You do not owe them your presence. And you certainly do not owe them your silence, too. Walk away is not cruelty. It is clarity. To say enough is not an act of aggression. It is an act of protection. You must become more loyal to your peace than to anyone else's expectations. There is an old Stoic exercise. Imagine that everything you own, everyone you know, every comfort you enjoy could be taken from you at any moment. Not to inspire fear, but to sharpen appreciation and to loosen attachment. This includes the people around you. Some may go, some must go. The only tragedy is in pretending otherwise. Let there be no resentment, no lingering bitterness. Clean, steady hand of reason guiding you out of unnecessary chaos. You are not being cold. You're being conscious. You are not being selfish. You're being sovereign. Because at the end of it all, no one else will carry your regrets. No one else will live with your distractions. No one else will clean up the damage of the relationships you kept out of fear. That is yours to bear. Or to release. The Stoic teaches us not only how to endure, but how to eliminate the sources of needless suffering. It's not only how to tolerate pain, but how to stop inviting it into our lives in the first place. The fire within you is sacred. The silence you've cultivated is powerful. Guard it. And the path you've chosen is rare. Walk it with intention, because while the world distracts itself with surface, you are building depth. While others seek comfort, you are choosing clarity. And while many settle for noise, you are returning again and again to the quiet strength that can never be faked. This is not just philosophy. This is armor, not for the body, but for the soul. And the moment you stop explaining, defending, justifying, your peace begins. Let it be unshaken. Let it be undisturbed. Let it be the filter that protects your life from the influence of the very people you should never have trusted in the first place. There is a certain calm that comes when you finally realize not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Not because you are better, not because you are proud, but because you now understand the value of what you bring. And not all hands reach out to hold, some reach to take. The Stoics believed that a man's greatest defense against suffering was not physical strength, but discernment. To be able to look clearly at the world and say, this is in my control, this is not. And nowhere is this more needed than in the people we keep close. Some will smile and speak in soft tones, but the effect of their presence is corrosion. Subtle, consistent, quiet erosion of your confidence, your focus, your clarity. You feel worse after speaking with them, but can't name why. You laugh in their company but leave feeling hollow. You feel obligated to respond, to attend, to help hand, yet, deep down, that if the roles were reversed, the same would not be true. These are the people Stoicism warns us about, not enemies in the obvious sense, but thieves of peace, disguised as companions. And what is peace, really? It's not silence. It's not withdrawal. It is the steady alignment between your values and your actions. And this alignment is fragile. It can be derailed not only by dramatic events or major loss, but by daily compromises, subtle tolerances, the quiet drip of allowing what you know. It is wrong to remain simply because you do not wish to offend. But as the Stoics remind us, you cannot live according to nature while trying to live according to everyone else's expectations. The path to virtue is narrow precisely because so few are willing to walk it without applause. There will be those who ask for your time without purpose. There will be those who demand your loyalty without giving truth. There will be those who mistake your kindness for weakness, your silence for consent. But there must be a line of point where your patience ends, your clarity begins. To trust someone is not to ignore their patterns. To respect someone is not to deny your discomfort. If a person lies once, it may be error. If they lie repeatedly and easily and always with an excuse, they are not trustworthy. Not because of one act, because of a demonstrated nature. If someone consistently asks for your help but is never present when you are in need, they are not a friend. They are a user. If a person ridicules your discipline, your standards, your ambitions, they are not trying to humble you. They're trying to keep you beneath them. The Stoic does not hate such people. He simply moves on. He does not announce his departure, does not wish them harm. He simply recognizes that where there is no mutual respect, there can be no true relationship. You are allowed to be selective. You are allowed to reserve your energy. You are allowed to stop explaining your soul. It's two people who are committed to misunderstanding it. You are not cold. You are not distant. You are clear. And clarity is often mistaken for cruelty. By those who benefit from your confusion, they will say you've changed. Let them. They will say you've become distant. Let them. They will say you've lost your warmth, your openness, your softness, and still let them. Because what you've actually lost is your tolerance for what drains you. What you've lost is the belief that everyone deserves access to you. What you've lost is the habit of carrying people who will never carry you, and in this loss, you gain everything. You gain time once wasted on thee. It's unreceptive. You gain strength, the kind that comes from no longer needing to be liked by all. You gain peace, not the kind you fake with a smile, but the kind you feel when you're finally living in accordance with truth. The Stoic path is not lonely, it is filtered, not barren, but pure. You may have fewer people around you, but those who remain will be mirrors of your principles. They will speak truth, even when it's hard. They will celebrate your growth, even when it surpasses theirs. They will respect your time, your space, your silence. This is the reward for discernment, not just peace within, but peace around. It is said that if you want to know a man's character, look at his friends, so look at yours. Do they nourish your soul or starve it? Do they speak virtue or vanity? Do they challenge you toward betterment or lull you into stagnation? You already know the answer. Now act on it. Do not delay because of sentimentality. Do not hesitate out of guilt. The Stoic acts not from emotion, but from reason. And if reason shows that someone should no longer walk beside you, then no matter how long they have been there, no matter what you have shared, no matter how loud, the noise of memory, let them go quietly, decisively, without hatred, but without return. Not everyone can follow you into the next chapter, and the fewer who do, the lighter your soul becomes. A man's silence often reveals more than his words ever could, especially when that silence is deliberate, when it is not born from weakness, but from wisdom. The Stoics knew this. They trained themselves not just in what to say, but in what not to answer. Not because they feared conflict, but because they understood the cost of wasted energy. There are people who thrive on reaction. They feed off of disruption. They build their sense of self not on virtue, but on validation. And when they see someone grounded, someone still, someone content without the need for noise, they are disturbed, because it reminds them of their own lack of depth. And so they poke, they prod, they test. Not out of curiosity, but out of envy. They will accuse you of arrogance when you refuse to argue. They will call you heartless when you set boundaries. They will frame your calm as coldness, your restraint as passivity. But here's the truth. You do not owe anyone access to your peace. If someone needs you to shrink so they can feel tall, they are not worthy of your presence. If someone requires you to explain your every step so they can feel in control, they're not looking for connection. They are looking for ownership. And if someone only respects you when you agree with them, then it is not respect they feel, but dependency. You must be wary of those who demand trust while giving none, wary of those who stake transparency for obligation, wary of those who expect you to be available at all times, but vanish when you are the one in need. These people are not just burdens, they are distractions. And distraction in the eyes of a Stoic is not harmless. It is a form of moral decay. It slowly pulls you away from purpose, from clarity, from virtue, until one day you look around and realize that your days have been spent managing other people's expectations rather than living your own principles. To trust someone is to give them a piece of your future, and not everyone should be given that. Power, some will betray it with manipulation, others with carelessness, some with jealousy disguised as support, others with indifference hidden behind politeness. So you must learn to watch not what people say, but what they do, not how they show up once, but how they show up repeatedly. The Stoics did not make judgments on whims, they made them from patterns. One kind act does not redeem a pattern of abuse. One apology does not undo a cycle of disrespect. Forgiveness may be given, but trust must be earned. It is never the same. You are not bitter for protecting yourself. You are not rigid for refusing to let chaos in. You are not harsh for stepping away from those who consistently disregard your boundaries. You are living in alignment, and there is no higher peace than that. Some will argue, but they're family. But we have history. But they've been in my life for so long. But what is time if not a mirror of habit? Someone has had years to show their true character and has done so, clearly and consistently. Then what more do you need? History without respect is just sentimentality. And sentimentality without virtue is a trap. The Stoic knows that. Relationships are not sacred simply because they are old. They are sacred when they are mutual. When both sides are committed to honesty, growth, and virtue. Everything else is noise, and you were not made to live in noise. You were made to think clearly, to act justly, to speak truthfully, and to walk in peace. That is the Stoic calling. Not isolation, but elevation. Not withdrawal, but discernment. Not superiority, but clarity. When you stop trusting the wrong people, you begin hearing your own voice again, claiming your own time. You begin walking your own path without guilt, without hesitation, without apology. It's not easy, but it is simple, because deep down, you already know who they are. The ones who drain you, the ones who belittle you, the ones who only love the version of you that serves them. You know them, you felt them, you've made excuses for them. But the Stoic does not live in excuse. He lives in action, so act. Withdraw your trust from those who have proven unworthy. Withdraw your time from those who waste it. Withdraw your energy from those who refuse to respect it. And in that space, watch what returns. Your clarity, your purpose, your strength. Because the moment you stop feeding the wolves at your door, you remember what it feels like to walk without fear. And that feeling, it's not just peace, it's power. There comes a moment, often quiet and without announcement, when you realize that your life has changed, because the world shifted, but because you did. You see more clearly. You react less. You no longer chase explanations, apologies, or approvals. You are not colder, just cleaner. And this shift is not arrogance, it is the fruit of pain, reflection, and repeated reminders that not everyone deserves your trust. The Stoics understood that strength was not in how much one could endure from others, but in how little one was willing to compromise their soul to keep the wrong company. They taught that a wise man does not pour his energy into those who waste it, nor does he bend his values to accommodate the undisciplined. Look around, ask yourself, who truly honors your presence, who listens without twisting your words, respects your time, your boundaries, your silence. These are the ones worth keeping. Everyone else is simply passing through. There are people who will misunderstand your stillness. Let them. There are people who will resent your refusal to engage in drama. Let them. There are people who will try to lure you back into old versions of yourself because your growth unsettles them. Let them try and let them fail. Because what you now protect is not just your peace, it is your integrity. It is easy to confuse loyalty with virtue. But loyalty, when directed toward the wrong person, becomes self-betrayal. And betrayal, when repeated, becomes habit. And habits, if not confronted, become identity. So the Stoic reflects, not just on who others are, but on who they themselves are becoming by remaining near them. Are you growing, or are you dimming your light? Are you finding strength or constantly recovering from small cuts? You walking your path? Are you getting lost in someone else's maze? You know the answers? You always have. And perhaps that's the most sobering truth of all that deep down. Long before you asked for advice, you knew. You knew which connections were false. You knew which faces masked resentment. You knew which voices never spoke from love, but from control, fear, or ego. And still, you stayed, but not anymore now. You walk forward not with anger, but with clarity, not with pride, but with resolve. Not to prove anyone wrong, but to prove yourself right. The Stoics did not teach us to hate. They taught us to filter. They did not tell us to cut people off in rage, but to step back and reason. They taught that life is too brief to be lived apologizing for your standards, that virtue demands solitude at times, that wisdom requires silence, that peace is not just freedom from noise, but freedom from needing anything unworthy of your nature. So let go of the person who always doubts you. Let go of the one who makes you feel small. Let go of the one who only comes around when they need something. Let go of the one who cloaks manipulation in charm. Let go, not to punish, but to purify. Because the moment you release what's heavy, you make space for what's honest. The right people will never ask you to shrink. They will not compete with your light, but rise in it. They will not mock your values, but share them. They will not test your loyalty by betraying it, but honor it with their own. This is the new standard. This is the quiet power of a Stoic life. And in living it, you will lose many things: approval, shallow relationships, the comfort of the familiar, but you will gain far more. You will gain self-respect. You will gain freedom. You will gain a soul that no longer bends for the sake of acceptance. You will gain solitude that feels like sanctuary, not punishment. And in time, you will look back at all you release not with regret, but with gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons, gratitude for the growth, gratitude for the moment you finally chose yourself. Because in the end, the only people you should trust or respect are the ones who move you closer to virtue. Everyone else is a test, and you now are the answer.